Hi everyone, I'm Lizzie of Lizzie Cree Flowers, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a gorgeous traditional wreath for your front door. The equipment I have with me today includes, this is a 12-inch wire ring for the base of our wreath. We've got some sphagnum moss over there to make the base, some heavy duty snips, some real wire, which is spelled R-E-E-L, also known as floristry wire, and then some gorgeous foliages as well. We've also got some traditional decorations such as pine cones and some dried oranges. So our first step is to attach our wire. So find the end and find the top of your wreath and simply wrap it round a few times. Give it a quick pull just to make sure it's tight, and then we're good to go. Next, we're going to collect our moss. So let me bring this round here. Now this is sphagnum moss, which I mentioned earlier, and this is a little bit different from the moss that you can find on kind of walls and things like that. That's also perfectly fine to use, but don't take too much, obviously, because it's natural environment and we don't want to take too much of what's growing outside. This is specifically grown for wreath making. It's nice and spongy and kind of keeps moisture in. Now, if the moss you get is a little bit dry, you can either just run it under the tap for a little bit and then squeeze out any excess moisture. You don't want it too wet, but you do want it to keep that moisture in. And the reason we use moss is just to keep our foliage a little bit fresh as we carry on. So what I've just done there is I've just taken a little handful, and I'll take a little bit more, and I've just laid it around my wreath ring here, just on the top where I've attached my wire. Now I'm going to take my wire and slowly wrap it round where I've made this kind of sausage shape of moss. Sometimes they're called mossages, which I quite like. So I'm going to carry on with my reel, round and round the moss, just making sure that it's attached nicely there to form our base. So I'm going to carry on until I get all the way round. Okay, brilliant, I've just reached to the end there. You can see I've got the full all the way around. If it's looking a bit bare in any places, don't worry, you can absolutely just go around again. Just keep your wire going and add a little bit more in. Now the brilliant thing about using moss is that it is biodegradable. So obviously there's a thing called floral foam, which is a plastic foam that you can use for wreath making, but unfortunately obviously not very good for the environment. So yeah, using a wreath like this with the moss is brilliant because it helps the environment, and you can reuse it again as well. So if you can store it in a shed maybe outside, when it comes to next year you can just rehydrate and then you can use it again for your festive wreath next year as well. So that's brilliant. So I've kept my wire on, and as I've just reached the end, I'm just going to do a couple of loops round just to make sure that it's really nice and tight there before we move on to the next stage. Excellent. Now this is the messy job, unfortunately, so if you want to clear down your area after you've done this, that's brilliant, so then you've got a nice clean working space for the next section. Okay, so we're ready for our next step, which is adding our foliage. So I've kept the wire still attached, and we're going to keep that on all the way around as we go into our next layer. So I've got some wonderful festive foliage with me today. Some spruces and some firs and some eucalyptus and some wild berries as well, which is lovely. What I'm going to do first is kind of teach you how to make the most of the foliage that you're going to use, because this is quite a big piece, and what we want to do, it might look a little bit too much onto your wreath if you added that whole thing. So what I want to do is just effectively show you how to chop your foliage so that you don't make any wastage, because obviously it's hard to come by and we want to make sure that we get the most out of every single leaf. So what I've done here is I've chopped my foliage, but I've chopped it just at the top here where there's two branches that come out. And this is a piece that I can use in my wreath, but this is also a piece that I can use in my wreath, because you're never going to see this cutting edge here. So there we go. And this is the same, this is some of this really big spruce that I'm using here. It's a blue spruce. So yeah, just chop all the arms off and then you can cut them down even further as well. So I'm going to take a little piece of this one. I'm going to take some of my fir as well. So I'm kind of building a little bundle as I go. I've got some ivy here with some seeds heads, which is lovely. A little bit of eucalyptus maybe. Like put that at the back. So here we go, we can have, you see that you've got a little kind of bundle of foliage, if that makes sense. And we can add a little bit more. And you just want to be able to hold it between your thumb and your finger, like in a little pinch there. I think that looks quite pretty. And then I'm going to lay it onto my wreath here, just where the wire's still attached, just so that it's kind of resting at a little bit of an angle, as you can see there, so that it kind of just sprays out over to my wreath. And I'm going to take my wire, just as I did before, and continue to wrap it round. I'll give it two wraps just to be safe, make sure it's nice and secure. Also, don't worry if your moss is a bit scraggly and things like that. You're going to cover all of that up now with your little bundles of foliage. Excellent, so that's my first one, and then I'm going to go on to the second. And I'm probably going to repeat the similar patterns of foliages that I've used so that you've got that nice consistency as you go round. So I'm going to take that piece that I cut earlier, I quite like that they've got two little dangly bits on it there, and maybe this nice bit of fur, that kind of adds nice things. So again with my berries, my ivy, and again with my little bit of eucalyptus. So I'm kind of repeating that pattern as I'm going around. You can of course do absolutely anything that you like in this kind of situation. Any foliages you like, different colours, if you have any wonderful fresh berries or kind of really lovely scraggly twigs that you want to include, absolutely anything you can put in here. You know, the world is your oyster in terms of foliage. Wonderful, so I've attached my second bunch. We can kind of see how this is kind of thickening up and how the wreath's going to carry on forming. So just as we go, just going to carry on adding little bundles round and round until we get to the end of the wreath. Now you'll see here that every time I attach a new little bundle, I make sure that I cover up the kind of the ends here where I've been using the wire, just so that we get that nice consistency as we go round. So I'm nearly at the end of my wreath, and this is where it gets a tiny bit tricky because we want to make sure that we don't see where there's any gaps or anything like that. We want to make sure that it looks like a continuous join as we go around. So I'm just preparing my final bundle, making sure that it's nice and kind of lush in there. And you'll see I've got this is where my gap is. And what I'm going to do is just lift my first bundle and tuck it underneath, just so that we can make sure that we can't see any wires and that it gives us that seamless transition as we go around the wreath. Now I'm going to wrap it round quite a few times now, just to make sure that it's really secure. And then I'm going to tie off, add a little bit of extra length on my wire, snip it, wrap it round one final time, and then tuck underneath into the moss so that it doesn't scratch anything. There we go. Then zhuzh our foliage just a little bit and make sure that we're happy with everything. Now, I like to make sure that I hold it up and just check that it all looks even. I have no idea if it looks even right now, so I'm just going to have a look now. But yeah, definitely make sure that you take a step away and just make sure that you're happy with everything. You can move everything around, and we can also add little bits in as well. Because we're using moss, it's a really great tool that allows you to put any extra little bits and bobs in, and you can just tuck it in into the foliage and it will stay, which is brilliant. So I'm just going to neaten things up a little bit here. I've gone for quite a wild design with this one. There we are. Excellent. I'm just going to put a little bit more fur over here. So it looks brilliant. And then next we're going to move on to our decorations. The decorations I have today are some pine cones. I love pine cones. It always reminds me of going for walks with my mum and collecting them in the winter. And some dried oranges as well. We've also got some sparkly bits, might not use them today, but also these gorgeous blueberries. So first of all, I think I'm going to go for some of the blueberries. And obviously you could have incorporated them when you're putting your foliage in, but I quite like to wait till the end and do small little bundles, and then we can just simply place them in. So I've got a few little snips here. That's kind of all the length that you need. And I'm going to just simply tuck them in to my little bundles at even kind of spreads around. But don't worry too much about making everything very even. It's all, you know, it's good to be natural and keep the shape as natural as you like. So obviously we're working with natural materials. Now I love these berries. These are a type of a viburnum berry. And they have a really beautiful kind of shimmery silver, as well as a deep kind of emerald blue. Next, I'm going to teach you how to wire decorations. Now, I actually have some pre-cut wire here. This is just pre-cut for me, but you can just use your real wire that you've been using earlier and just take little snips. So I'm firstly going to take a pine cone. I'm going to find the base and simply wrap my wire around the base of the cone, a bit like so. So it kind of sits in the middle, and then I'm going to twist a few times just to make it nice and secure. And now that I've got these two little forking ends, I can pop that into my moss when I add the decoration on. Add on my pine cone and tuck any loose ends of wire into the moss, again just to stop any scratching, or obviously you don't want to hurt anyone if they do pick it up. Excellent, so that looks beautiful, and I will just carry on and go round and round with my pine cones. Now you don't have to be, again, particularly uniform with your placing of your pine cones. I quite like to make them look kind of dotted all over the place, but that's absolutely fine. Excellent, so this is my pine cones. I've only done 4 in this case just because I'm going to put in some lovely oranges, and I just want to make sure that there's just enough room for that. The thing I love about using oranges is they really contrast the blue really well on the berries. So I'm just going to take a few and talk you through how to wire these on as well. So you're going to take your length of wire, and I quite like to bunch them together so that you've got maybe 2 kind of in there. So what I do is I go through pierce through the bottom of the slice. There we are. And do similarly what we did with the cones. Take my wire, fold it in half, and just give it a bit of a twist. And then we carry on like we were with the cones, and just placing them on our wreath, tucking any loose ends underneath, and just adjusting so that it sits nicely within the foliage. And then I'll carry on with another 2 slices. Awesome, so I'm really pleased with how that's turned out. So I've got some oranges in there, I've got my pine cones, and it's smelling delicious. Now the final thing, pièce de résistance, as they say, is to add some ribbons. So I've got some gorgeous emerald ribbon that is absolutely lovely and nice and velvety as well. Now this has wire in it, which helps make kind of our bow, keep that kind of shape, and it just adds that lovely touch. So what I'm gonna do is just tie this together. Now the trick I do is I don't tie it onto my wreath straight away. I build my bow and then I wire it on at the end. That's because making bows is very fiddly, as I'm about to show you. So, do like so. And then I'm going to spend quite a lot of time teasing, pulling some of the ends back through, just giving us this lovely bold shape. Now I'm going to let you into a bit of a secret. This takes me a very long time because I'm a bit of a perfectionist about my ribbons. So I'm going to do a bit of a Blue Peter. And here is one that I made earlier, just to make sure that I can show you everything. So I'm just finally going to do the finishing touches to my ribbon, and I'm going to cut the ends so that they're on a slant. Make sure you use nice sharp scissors for this. Cut the end there. And what angle I'm going to do there. Job, this one. Awesome. There we go. I'm really, really happy with how that looks. Now I'm going to find the space on my wreath that I think there's, what's best for the top and which is best for the bottom. I've got a bit of a gap here, and I think this is probably the perfect location for my ribbon to go to hang at the bottom of the wreath. Now I'm going to use some pre-cut wire again, but simply just use your real wire again and just take a little snip off. That's absolutely fine. And I'm going to thread it through the back of my ribbon. Out the other side, similarly to the way we did with all of our other decorations. Give it a quick twist just to make sure it's nice and secure, and then I'm going to take a look. How does that look? Excellent. See, I quite like my ribbon to kind of emerge out of the foliage, but you can kind of place it however you like. There's also different options you can do with ribbon. You don't have to tie a bow. You can have it just hanging down the back, which I love, like it's nice and long and romantic. You can use it as your hanger. So if you don't have a nail on your door or anything like that, you can attach it at the back and make sure that you've got like a nice way of hanging it onto your door. You can do both as well, so you can have it kind of running through the bottom and the top. But yeah, this to me looks lovely at the bottom. There we go. And then the final thing to think about is how you're going to attach it to your door. So as I said, you could use some ribbon to add a little loop, but you can also use some of your wire and just attach it at the top, form a little loop onto your ring, and then you can attach it that way. It's completely up to you and the door that you have. Now, if you're going to be keeping your wreath on your front door, it's going to be outside, so hopefully we'll get some moisture from being outside. If it's going to be on a door that's in a porch, or maybe you're in a flat or anything like that, I would recommend giving it a bit of a spray of water every so often, every week maybe, just to keep it nice and hydrated. Things will dry over time, but that kind of adds to the nice look and makes sure that it's nice and festive. Amazing, so there you have it. One lovely traditional festive wreath to go on your door this Christmas. If you want to find out more about my Christmas items this year, you can go to my website www.lizziecreeflowers.com or check out my Instagram @LizzieCreeFlowers. Thanks so much for watching.